Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective, and today this is truly a retrospective opportunity. And what I have here is a Acer Aspire One. Before we get any further, I want to thank Joyce for actually donating this to the channel. I have to say, you kept this thing in fantastic shape. For those of you that are completely unfamiliar with what a netbook is, it is essentially a 10-inch computer that ran on an Intel Atom processor often enough. It was essentially a 32-bit mobile word processor with some internet connectivity thrown in. People will make fun of these things an awful lot. However, I am one of their staunch defenders because it was incredibly inexpensive at the time that it was released. It was the only thing that you could get that was close to all-day battery life. It was super portable, and it actually ran a real operating system that you could do some basic tasks on. I remember going from my larger Pentium 4 Toshiba laptop to this at university, and it was an absolute game changer. The fact that this could fit on any lecture desk easily, it didn't break my back, and I wasn't constantly going through the university trying to find a wall plug to charge up for my next class. It was amazing. And this would essentially be the Chromebook before Chromebooks. Let's talk about the one that we have in front of us right here. This is the Acer Aspire One 532H 2588 model. And this came out in 2010. And as you can see, Acer was quite proud to be a world partner of the Olympics. And we're going to quickly get the specifications out of the way because they're pretty lackluster. However, Joyce did do some upgrades before this was sent to me, and we'll talk about those as well. So we are looking at an Intel Atom N450 processor, and that allowed this thing to run Windows 7 32-bit. Now, Joyce has actually gone and put Peppermint OS on this, which I think is actually a very nice choice. I have never actually used that OS before this, and I have to say, for a 32-bit light distro of Ubuntu, it's good. I actually really like it. It sports a 10.1-inch LED display, which is 1024 by 600 resolution, so not too much to write home about. It did come from the factory with 1 GB of RAM and a 160 gig mechanical hard drive. However, those have been upgraded before it came to me to 2 GB of RAM and a Kingston 120 GB SSD. It also came with a card reader, an 802.11 BGN Wi-Fi card, and it was sporting a 6-cell battery with 48 watt-hours. Let's go ahead and unbox this and see what you would have gotten inside for your money. So we've got a little addendum here telling us to read it, which we won't. And the only real modification that was made to the external case of this was a panda sticker, which, I mean, look at that guy. He's so happy to be in that tree. In the box, we have the charger, and I have to say, this is considerably more compact than the one that I had on mine back in the day. And then we have all of the original literature that would have come with it. We've got some warranty cards. We have the user's guide as well as the quick start guide. The quick start guide is, you know, very, very basic. Here's how you turn it on. Here's how you use it. Here's how you use it. Here's how you get the battery out. All the card slots. We have an international traveler's warranty, which I'm sure is long since expired. And then in here, we just have information about the recovery utility, some troubleshooting. It's pretty basic. No disassembly instructions in that. This was kept in excellent condition. All of the stickers from the factory are still on it, as well as the keyboard protective sleeve there. This is a different keyboard layout than the one that I had when I was in university, but it's still very, very nice. In fact, I think it's a little bit better. In terms of ports, along the left-hand side, we do have the power plug. We do have VGA. We have 2 USB 2.0. And then on this side, we have the SD card slot with a blank insert there for its protection and to keep dust out. We have a headphone jack, a microphone jack, another USB port, a Kensington lock slot, and then an Ethernet port. At the top, we do have the webcam and microphone array. And this one was apparently optimized for low light video calling. Those are essentially the basics. And when it comes to servicing this thing, it isn't actually all that bad. So let's go ahead and flip this thing over and do a quick disassembly before we power it up. All right, now that we have this thing flipped over, we can start our disassembly. The first thing we'll need to do, of course, is remove the battery. There is a lock on the right-hand side of the machine when it's upside down. Make sure that you can see the red. Pull the left catch, and I found putting your thumb right above the barcode information there is a good place to pull up on the battery, because that's where the connector is, and it is pretty stiff on this one. Once we have the battery out of place, then we are free to disassemble the rest of the machine. So we will get our screwdriver and start with these two main panels. Now, I remember on the Acer that I had, there was a bit of an issue doing any serious work on it because you had to essentially pull the entire motherboard out to get to the SSD or the hard drive on those, which wasn't ideal, but it wasn't that bad. It was about a 20-minute project, and you can see that video up here. It's pretty old, so if you are new to the channel, just be prepared for a probably simpler and not as good presentation. And they have already done a much better job of you being able to service the key components, because the drive is facing us and we've got a clear pull tab here and out this comes. So here's our Kingston 120 gig SSD. Nothing fancy, but for something like this, it's perfectly adequate. And we can see that it is secured by two of the screws that actually go through that panel, which is a nice little design choice. Over here we do have our Wi-Fi card as well as the routes for the antenna that will obviously go through the entire machine. And it looks like we have another slot here that could possibly be used for expansion. All right, it looks like this is very stiff. There we go. And here is the RAM, and it is a 2 gig stick of PC2 6400 DDR2 800. And that's pretty much the most that you are going to get in this. Anything larger than 2 gigabytes is not readable by that CPU. So to finish up our quick disassembly of all the major components, the one other that comes out very easily is actually the keyboard. So if we open this up, there are tabs along the very top here. And all we need to do is activate each one of those tabs in turn. Once we have all those clips popped at the top, the keyboard will pop up, and we just gotta lean it forward like this. And we can disconnect the ribbon cable here, and then we can also see the ribbon cable for the trackpad as well. Reassembly of this is simply just putting the keyboard back in place and clicking it back in. So let's go ahead and put this all back together and see how it starts up. All right, let's start this thing up. So as you can see, it's not going to win any speed awards, but as you can see, it's far from the worst. One thing that I should point out is that this battery is about 44% of its original life. I suspect that it degraded in storage. So out of that 48 watt hours, it's currently got about 21.2 watt hours left, but that's still going to give you about 2.5 hours of charge. That's pretty decent. So if you were to get a brand new 6-cell battery for this, you could easily double that and probably a little bit. So that's about a 5-hour battery. And then you could also get the fatter batteries that acted as the kickstand and pretty much have all-day battery. And that is something that you need to understand was a really big deal, especially in 2009, 2010, when these were really gaining in popularity. As you can see, it's not exactly a good fit for a modern web experience unless you don't mind some pretty egregious load times. One of the features that I absolutely love about this one, and I wish I had on mine, is actually this region just to the right of the trackpad that has these raised ridges, and you can swipe down to do the scrolling. And on a trackpad this small, I think that this is a perfect compromise given the challenges that you might have with a machine of this size. So by and large, this is obviously harder to recommend in 2021 as anything other than a word processor, maybe the occasional tinkering device, or if you absolutely need battery life on a budget, then there are some compromises that you can make. But I really wanted to showcase this because, one, it is a fantastic example of what once was. And I think that's really important to recognize, that these little tiny machines really paved the way for the cheap, portable, and practical computer. And it was definitely a huge, huge step in the right direction. So even though they're not remembered well today, they were still an amazing piece of kit when they came out. Once again, I want to thank Joyce for donating this to the channel. I really do appreciate it. At any rate, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed this content, and if you do, I am going to leave the big 4 for you, as I always do. Please like the video, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, so the next time I release a video like this, you will be the first to know about it. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.